Title: The Train of Souls and Other Horror Stories. Welcome to another episode of Relatos de la Noche Night Tales. Through the following stories, we aim to push the limits of your skepticism, making you ponder what you believe in, what you fear, and what you consider to be safe. We want you to think about where that limit lies and how much it truly matters whether we believe in something or not in order to witness a truly paranormal event. We invite you to turn off the lights and immerse yourself in the following stories. Remember, one of you, someone listening right now, may become the protagonist of a future episode. But for now, let's enjoy these terrifying tales. Although I must warn you, there's no turning back once you start listening to Relatos de la Noche Night Tales. Hello, Uriel and the Relatos de la Noche Night Tales team. I have been a part of the community for some time now, and I really enjoy your podcast. I have listened to some stories that inspired me to share my own. It's something I can't explain, but maybe there's someone out there who can. It's a short story, but here it goes. If you decide to share it, please only mention my first name. My name is Patricia and I'm from the state of Querétaro, but the story takes place in a faraway land, Canada. Last year, in September 2023, I had the opportunity to visit Montreal and Quebec with some friends. We planned to visit Quebec for just one day. The plan was to leave Montreal early on a Sunday morning and return the same day, as we had booked accommodation for the rest of the trip. There were 6 of us, so we rented a van to make the journey faster. However, only 4 of us knew how to drive. We decided that whoever wanted to drive at any point could do so, and we would figure out the logistics. One friend and one female friend drove on the way there, and on the way back, it was another friend and me. I drove the last leg of the journey, which was at night. The road we took had only 2 lanes, and in some sections, there was a wide median with grass. Occasionally, we would see lights from cars in the opposite direction, but it was rare. To our left, there was grass, trees, and occasionally, a distant car light. To the right, there was a forest with a few exits to factories and other places, but very little lighting. It's important to mention the conditions of the road to understand my experience. When it was my turn to drive, we made a stop at a gas station to refuel. I switched seats with the driver and we continued our journey. It was almost midnight, and 4 of the 6 passengers in the van were fast asleep. Only my co-pilot was awake with me. I can't recall how long I had been driving when suddenly, for a brief moment, I noticed a woman walking on the side of the road to the right. She was walking with her head down, wearing either denim shorts or a tank top, or perhaps she was topless. I'm not sure. Her legs were completely white, and she was barefoot. Given the cold weather, it was impossible for her to be walking there in those clothes. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know if she was a real woman because there were no buildings around, no lights, and we hadn't passed any nearby towns or seen any cars for a while. There was no logical explanation for a person to be walking like that in those conditions at that time. It didn't make sense. At that moment, my friend had bent down to pick something up from the floor of the van, so he didn't see what I saw. I was terrified, and my heart started beating fast. All I could say to my co-pilot was, "Please tell me you saw that. Please tell me you saw a woman walking on the side of the road." He didn't know how to respond. He asked me to describe what I saw, and I told him everything. He suggested that we should have stopped to see if she needed help, as it could have been a woman in a difficult situation or something had happened to her. However, I thought it was relatively unlikely given the location. I also considered that we couldn't risk stopping and potentially endangering everyone else. Although we were in Canada, my Latin American side told me it could be a trap. During the discussion, the 2 friends who had driven before me woke up and asked what was happening and why we were driving so slowly. I told them what had happened, and one friend said it didn't matter if it was something from this world or not. We shouldn't separate. The other friend agreed and said we should have stopped. I believe they both had valid points, but by the time we finished the discussion, it was too late to turn back. I didn't get to see her face, no matter how much I wanted to. There were no lights, and there were no other cars to illuminate her. But that image, the image of her walking on the side of the road, is still vivid in my mind. That night, I trembled for a long time, and at some point, I even thought, and I'm grateful it didn't happen, that I would encounter her again before reaching our destination. Hello, Uriel. My name is Malina, and I'm from Veracruz, Mexico. I currently live in Pennsylvania. A few months ago, you shared one of my paranormal experiences, and today I want to share another one before I moved to Pennsylvania. I lived in Santa Monica, California for 20 years, and in certain areas, second-hand stores are very popular, especially in wealthy neighborhoods. It's easy to find a Goodwill or a thrift store. I am a lover of antique objects, and I spent several months visiting many of these stores in search of a specific style of furniture that I adore. At that time, I was looking for a dining room set, and fortunately, I found exactly what I was looking for in a store near my house that I didn't even know existed. As soon as I entered, I saw the furniture I had been searching for. It was as if those pieces were calling out to me. Without hesitation, I approached the salesperson and told her I wanted to buy them, no matter the cost. She agreed, and I had 3 days to pick them up. I paid for them immediately and called a moving company. The next day, I picked up the furniture. They were beautiful pieces, with an unusual color between green and brown, made of solid, heavy, and intricately carved wood. The movers placed them exactly as I wanted, and I started cleaning them. In one of the drawers of the buffet, I found an envelope with a very old photo from the 1920s and some letters. The letters were written in a very elegant, almost artistic handwriting. Due to the age of the paper and ink, they were barely legible, reduced to fragments of sentences. However, the photo was intact, a high-contrast black and white image of a military man and a beautiful blonde woman wearing a gorgeous floral dress. She looked like a doll. When I held that photo and those letters in my hands, I felt that I couldn't get rid of them. It was a feeling in my heart, especially because the only legible words in the fragments of the letters were "I love you." So, I kept them. Some days later, I noticed that the glass door of the buffet would always be open when I came home from work. It was strange because it only opened if you pulled it with force, as it had a lock. But every time, it was open, and only the left door. I tried not to pay much attention to it, but it happened almost every day. One afternoon, I bought a small frame to display that beautiful old photo. I put it on the buffet, making it visible to anyone who entered the house. That's when things started to get even stranger. Every time I cleaned the floor near one of the chairs at the head of the table, in front of the photo, I would instinctively avoid those spaces, as if I were avoiding a person. It was like feeling that someone was sitting there, and I didn't want to disturb them. I can't explain it exactly, but it always happened with that chair and in that specific spot in front of the photo. One Sunday, I was completely relaxed, sitting at my computer, when I received a video call from an old friend I hadn't seen in a long time. I answered, and he seemed very happy to see me, but he noticed that I was busy, so he said he would call me back later. Then, I told him I wasn't busy, that I was just reading on my computer. That's when he said something that terrified and confused me. He said, "No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the old couple sitting at the table behind you before you moved the camera." I was frozen for a few seconds until I realized what he was referring to. I was in front of that photo, but I didn't dare turn around to see who was sitting there. I asked him who he saw, and he said, "They are not bad. They won't harm you. On the contrary, they will take care of you." At that moment, fear and intense cold ran through my body. I asked him how he knew, and there was a long silence. "I can see them. It's obvious. They are still there," he finally replied. "Yes, they are there, but don't be afraid. They won't harm you," he added. I asked him how he knew, and there was a long silence. "I can see them. It's obvious. They are still there," he finally replied. "Yes, they are there, but don't be afraid. They won't harm you," he added. I didn't know what to say. I felt a lot of fear, and a deep chill ran through my body. He kept calling me, but I didn't answer. At that moment, My only concern was how to get them out of my house with a clear conscience. I remembered a Christian friend who often organized garage sales, raffles, and food sales to raise funds for the church. I called him and offered him the furniture as a gift. When they came to pick them up, I felt a kind of sadness that is hard to describe. It was like saying goodbye to someone I loved, something that was mine, something close to me. Nowadays, when I remember that photo, that couple, I feel a lot of nostalgia, as if I had truly lost those people. I never knew who they were, but I remember them fondly, and I pray to God that they find the peace and rest they need, that they don't follow those furniture wherever they go. I hope they have transcended. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for being here. Remember to visit our social media accounts, which you can find everywhere as RDL and official Relatos de la Noche. We truly hope you are enjoying this episode, allowing you to leave behind any worries or everyday concerns and immerse yourself in the world of the paranormal, a world that is often more peaceful and easier to inhabit. Remember, that is the main goal of Relatos de la Noche, besides scaring you. My name is Uriel Reyes, and you are still listening to the stories of tonight. Hello, Uriel. My name is Montserrat Varela, and I am a total skeptic. However, I find all these paranormal topics extremely interesting. Outside the city of Querétaro, there is a small village whose name I will omit. In that village, there is my great-grandmother Concepcion's house, which currently belongs to one of my great-aunts. The house has been completely uninhabited since my great-grandmother passed away in 2004. Nowadays, some members of my family, including uncles, aunts, cousins, my mom, my siblings, and my grandmother, often visit the house to spend time together and visit the cemetery where several of our relatives are buried. This story happened a few years ago during Easter vacation. It was a Friday before Holy Saturday, and we were heading to my great-grandmother's house to camp there for the weekend. It's worth mentioning that the house has a large property with a river that leads to a dam where many people have drowned. Local legends say that you can hear the famous Llorona weeping woman along this river, a well-known figure in Mexico and other Latin American countries. However, my skepticism didn't make me fear any of this, not even when I walked alone there at night. We spent a good amount of time walking around the village, enjoying its streets, having a good time, and visiting the local shops. We had a pleasant dinner and lived the day with tranquility. The unusual events started when we returned to our campsite after dinner. It was around 3 a.m. when I woke up, feeling extremely cold. My cousin had taken my blanket, leaving me exposed to the cold ground. My dog Dalila was sleeping next to me, completely unaware.